Hello, 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 hello. Peace, love, and blessings, beautiful, wonderful people. Welcome back to Philosophy with Z. I am Z. I'm so glad you're here with me today as we continue on our journey of what to say when you talk to yourself. I know that it's backwards in the video, but it is what it is. And if you hear a lot of background noise, it's just because my door is right next to the washer and dryer at my house. So that's fun. So today we're on chapter 8 and it's called the self-management sequence. And finally we're getting into the stuff that I really love, like the what you can do with all of this new awareness that we have about self-talk and programming, subconscious mind, and how the brain works and all that good stuff. This is like next step. This book is truly a process. So, and we're talking about the self-management sequence. So he's saying this because when we become aware of the steps that it takes to do anything in our lives, then it kind of gives us the upper hand. We can decide what direction we go when we have a more informed choice about the direction we're taking. Because life is not a matter of luck or fortune. Some people were just better off than others, or some people were born with more opportunities than others. Like, that's not the case. Like, nothing in this life is an accident. And it's kind of a bittersweet realization to know that everything that has happened in my life is basically a result of me and the way I've been thinking, what I believe, my programming. Like, there's lots of levels to it, but ultimately it's me. My life is happening for me, not to me. That's what Tony Robbins says. And I just love that because it puts me in like more of a role of control, but it's not all up to me. Like, there's also the God factor and everything. So it's not like I'm controlling everything in my life, but it's just that I realize that the way I'm thinking about stuff is definitely a factor in the way that things have turned out. I definitely can recognize some times in my life where I was asking for something or thinking about something and I got it, for better or worse. It's been a little bit of both. Like, before I really ended up in deep in my active addiction, like being homeless and jobless and all that stuff, like before that happened, I was literally in kind of a crisis of self and identity. And I was like, God, please give me a challenge. Give me something, because I watched enough shows to know that when we are challenged, that is an opportunity to develop your character. And I felt like I had no character. I didn't know who I was. I knew I had a job and a home and a car, but I also knew I was an artist deep down and I wasn't doing anything about that. So if someone were to ask me, like, who are you? What are you about? What do you stand for? What are your principles or values? Not that anyone really asked those questions, but if someone were to ask me that, I really had nothing to say for myself, and I didn't like that. So I realized that a lot of that is because I I was I was basically raised in a system of success in a way that would please the powers that be. I guess that's the best way I can say it. I was raised up to think that just go to school, get a job, move up the ladder in that job, and like that's what success is. And like, based on what he's saying, like, what that is success. If you do things in a certain way, you'll get a certain result. And that's cool and everything, but that's just not the life I wanted for myself. And I kind of digress from the subject, but I realized that most of what seems to happen to me in my life is happening for me in my life based on what I'm working on and what I'm working towards. And so everything in my life is a result of action and reaction, cause and effect. And so, like he says in the book, that every, like, on average, what we succeed in is what we have been what we succeed in is we have been working towards in a positive way, and what we fail in is what we've been working towards in a negative way. That's the best way that I could describe it in my own head. And it's like everything that we did or did not do was the cause of our success or our failure. So the way that he breaks it down is that he calls it the self-management sequence, the 5 steps that control our success or failure. So 1 is behavior, 2 is feelings, 3 is attitudes, 4 is beliefs, and 5 is programming. So let me just go through it. So our behavior is basically our actions. And with the right series of the right actions, we'll end up having better outcomes. So like, if you like your job, then you're probably going to work good at your job. You're going to be like doing the right things at your job so you get the right results. And when you have a series of right actions, you will get right results. And on the other hand, if you don't like your job, or you don't like your friendship, or you don't like your car, or your home, like whatever it is, if you don't like something, you're going to start acting like you don't like it. And both yourself and those around you will see the results of your actions. And it's not really to say that there really, every action is what it is. Every action is just a result of your feelings. So sometimes I tend not to say that the person is bad or acting bad, because you are not always your actions. So he goes on to say that after our actions are affected by our feelings. So every action we take is first filtered through our feelings. So what we do and how well we do it is based on how we feel about it. And he gives a cute example of a kid. If you give a kid a food they don't like, they're just they're like you. It looks like they're about to just die because you want them to eat this food. But if you give them a food they love, they're like diving headfirst into it. And so it's not like eating is the problem. It's just not even the food. The food in itself, there's nothing wrong with it. But it's how they feel about the food in front of them that will determine how they act upon the food. So that's cool. I like that example that he gave. And so like our actions are determined by our feelings, and our feelings are determined by our attitudes. And so what our attitudes are basically our perspective on our lives. And so I've heard people say, like, kids at school, if they don't change their attitude, then this is not going to work out for them. And I feel that because if our attitudes determine our feelings and our feelings determine our actions, then if you have a bad attitude about something, then you're going to feel bad about it, then you're going to act out on it. So that just makes sense. And I don't really want to dive like too deep into each one of these because it's kind of a flow that makes sense. So I don't want to just like beat a dead horse on that. I just want to fly through it. Okay, so our attitudes are also no accident. They don't just happen by chance. They're created, controlled, and influenced by our beliefs. And what we believe about anything will determine the attitudes we create about it, which will create our feelings around it, which will direct our actions regarding it. And based on all of that, that will determine if you do well or if you do poorly, if you succeed or fail. And the interesting thing about beliefs is that it doesn't have to be true. It doesn't really even have to be right or wrong for you. A belief is just what you feel to be true. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. And it's especially crazy because sometimes our beliefs can work against us. Like he gives an example of a person who has a belief that they kind of take a back seat to being the popular one. They are timid and shy and they're not as talkative as the popular ones. So because of that belief, they don't speak up. Someone at their job has an opportunity to do a project or something like that because they just had the gall to speak up about it. But deep down, that this person knew that they had a better idea, but they didn't speak up because of their belief about themselves. They believe that they are timid and shy and that they're not as popular, so they don't think that they can say anything. And I just think that's so interesting that we can believe something that is no good for us about ourselves. because what you say about yourself is true. Like, it will just come to pass that way. And so from that, he talks about how our beliefs are directed from our programming. And basically, this whole time in this book so far, we've been talking about our programming and how it was not necessarily created by us or for us. It it could go either way. Because once again, like, the programming could be right or wrong, true or false. It doesn't really matter if we just start believing it for ourselves. It's just like a chain reaction, because our programming creates our beliefs create attitudes create feelings determine actions, and actions create results. That's how the brain works. So if you want to manage yourself in a better way and change your results, you have to start at a very deep level, and that's changing your programming. And that's what the next chapter is kind of about, the 5 levels of self-talk, because we kind of have to talk to ourselves to change our own minds. And that's what I've been really practicing for a while now. Like, the last couple years of being in recovery have been truly like eye-opening and awakening, and just realizing not only how I've been acting, my behaviors and my belief system about myself, but what I who I was kind of molded to be. I used to think that, like, I don't want to be a cookie cutter person, like my school and my work being the cookie shape and just like pushing myself into that mold. Like, that's not really who I am. But that's kind of who I became because of my social programming. And it's not a matter of anyone being right or wrong in that programming. It's just that that's what we were taught. And that's what our parents were taught. And they taught us based on that programming as well. And at this point in my life, I just feel like it's my responsibility to unlearn and relearn who I really am. And this sequence is so helpful in realizing that. Like, my behavior. So I'm an artist, and I've known myself to be an artist for like decades. Because I'm 29, so I can say decades. Almost 3 decades. I've been drawing since I was a child, doing all kinds of artistic things since I was a child. Like, taking things apart, like crochet, duct tape, drawing, painting, ceramics, like all kinds of stuff I've been doing since I was a kid. And so my behaviors were a reflection of who I truly was inside. And as I got older, like going to school and stuff for most of my life, even going to a job, most of our lives we spend in these institutions, like 8 hours plus a day. And like my school, it was only like one class that was art. Everything else was like books and writing and reading and stuff like that. So I kind of lost a sense of who I was in that aspect. But now, my behavior, drawing. I love drawing. That's my thing. I make stickers today. Well, at the time of this recording, I make stickers. And so I do other things too. Like, I have this podcast. I draw. I mean, I write. So I do other things, but like making stickers is my favorite expression of art right now. And sometimes I'm feeling it, and sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm more concerned on writing. Or for a time, I was more concerned of creating the confidence course, Kaizen Confidence. So that was taking up most of my inspirational energy. And so I wasn't feeling drawing, but I'm so used to doing it. I tried drawing anyway. It would just turn out terrible. It just didn't look good. So because the acting, the behavior was drawing, but my feelings were not good. Because I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't inspired to draw. That was not the feeling emulating from within me. So it just wasn't happening. So then my attitude is like, I'm a drawer. Like, I do this. I do this. This is my thing. I love drawing. So I had a good attitude about it, but I didn't have a good feeling about it. So the result was not good. But I believe myself to be a good artist. So I believe that I can draw anyway. And so I was believing in my ability to draw. I had a good attitude about drawing, but I didn't have a good feeling about drawing. So the results were still not good. So like, but the programming is that the programming is an interesting piece because society doesn't really highlight artists generally. It's more about, I don't know, like trade work and having more concrete income and job opportunities, stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't really know what my programming is in relation to art because I've been working pretty hard at like coming to my truth in these last couple years of my life. So, I just have my programming that I have recreated in myself is that I'm an artist. I do this. This is my thing. This is what I share. This is what I love. This is my passion. And so I have kind of reprogrammed myself to believe that. And in many ways, I'm like working on programming myself to believe that people want my art because sometimes I still, oh, wow, I just realized sometimes I still have the programming and belief that art isn't taken seriously in the world. And so, me being an artist and providing art to people isn't the way to go. That's not the normal way to make money. That's not the normal way to share myself with the world. It's a hobby. It's a side talent. It's not your mainstream of income. So, like, wow, that's why I love doing this podcast because I really learned a lot about myself in the process. So, that is something I'm working on, changing my own programming regarding myself as an artist. Because I'll go through it again. Our programming create our beliefs create our attitudes create our feelings determine our actions, and our actions create results. So, like, in my first year of making and sharing my art, it has been kind of rocky because deep down, sometimes I believe that nobody wants to see my art. And it kind of sucks because if that's what I believe, then that's what will come to pass. And I'm grateful to have a network of people who love me and my art because it gives me just the little bit of social proof and confidence to affirm myself and keep doing what I love to do. And as I tell myself this, I tell myself, people want it, people love it, people need it, I love it, I need it. Then that is slowly but surely coming to pass. And like my Kaizen confidence course, I created that because that's what I do for myself. I created that because I want to help other artists also do what they love and share it and do their thing because so many artists are out here doing it. For example, one of my best friends, Macy, she has her page is Macy Dickerson Arts. Her Instagram is Curls Gone Wild 28, and I love the art that she creates. And I've seen her doing this for years. She started with one thing, moved on to another, and slowly but surely she has been evolving over time to create the art that she does today. And she was a prime example to me of how you just start with where you are and you master that and you get confident in that and you build courageous feelings and self-belief in whatever you're doing now and keep doing that thing. And as you evolve and change in your own life, so will your art. And I see that in myself too because the art that I created like 10 months ago, I'm not creating that art today. I don't think I could even go back and make that kind of art if I wanted to. But I still have it. I mean, it's digital, so I can still always print more of it. But it's interesting because it's not really authentically me today because I've been growing and changing over time as I am working on my self-talk and as I am figuring myself out and letting my truth like come out. I'm no longer held down by this programming, by this belief system. I am still in some ways, but I'm a work in progress. And so I love this book and I love this podcast and I love my art and I love that I am building this courageous energy within myself to share my journey and my experiences because I hope that it inspires another artist out there to do their thing, do what they love, and share it with people because the world needs what we got. Because otherwise, why would we have it? Like, I believe that God gave us talents to share. And God gave us eyes and ears so we can consume the beauty and the talents of this world. So that's just my little 2 cents about it. But that's all I have for you today. This chapter, we are next doing chapter 9, the 5 levels of self-talk. And I love this next chapter because it dives more into the kind of the subjects of what we're like. School has different subjects in the category of school. Self-talk has different subjects in the category of self-talk. So I'm excited to get into that with y'all next week. In the meantime, I wrote a blog post about this chapter, kind of diving more into each of these 5 steps in the sequence of self-management, because I'm a visual person, I'm a visual learner, so I thought it might be helpful to someone else. So if you go to my website, abstractlogic.me, and go to the blog section, you will see it on there. The self-management sequence is the title, and I hope that it can give you a little more insight into this subject. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, then you can just comment on that blog post itself, or you can send me a message personally. Either way, reach out to me. I'm here for you on this journey. As you learn more about you, I learn more about me, and I'm glad to be here with you. So until next time, peace, love, and blessings, beautiful people.